Hi everyone, my name is Laura. I am a polyglot who studies 5 different languages, and this is my channel, Languages with Laura, where I talk about learning these languages and also traveling. So one of the biggest challenges in learning one or more languages is staying motivated. At least for me it is to continue studying every day, every other day, every week, whatever it is, especially if you are a very busy person and maybe you work a full-time job or you go to school but you're not studying languages in school. It can be very hard to find the time to study these languages on your own if you're not very motivated. So here are 7 of my tips and tricks to stay motivated. I know, at least for me, it's like I know that I'm motivated or I know that I want to, but I'm not motivated to do so in the moment or in my routine. So a lot of these tips have to do with changing your routine, modifying your routine, and then that way you're not necessarily adding too much extra time, but you're still actually doing it. You're still learning your language or languages. So let's get into the video. The first tip is always a good one. It can be probably the most trickiest though, depending on your circumstances, and that is to find a buddy. Whether it is a native speaker that you are friends with, or it is someone who is learning a language. It could be the same language, it could be a different language, but having someone to hold you accountable can make a huge difference. So I would study a lot on my own. I didn't have a lot of friends who would study multiple languages or even liked studying languages in general. But then one of my friends decided that they wanted to start learning German, and that was the push for me to also begin German, because I would have a study buddy. I would have a friend, someone who can keep me accountable, but also keep me motivated, because if we did like a 1-week check-in, whether it's coming together for half an hour to study or talk, or even just sending each other a text every day, every other day of, hey, how's your German coming? And then eventually have those texts turn into German, and then maybe I can text them in German. And this, like I said, works with any language. It can also work with someone who is studying a different language than you, just to have someone to report to so that you don't feel so lonely. And another thing you can do is, if there is a community around you, maybe you're not very familiar with the community, but to challenge yourself to go and meet people, maybe go to a grocery store or a bakery or a restaurant or whatever in a community that speaks that language. If that is something around you, if you make that into your routine, then you're hearing it and you're hearing other people speak it and use it, and so that can be pretty motivating, at least for me, to study the language. I also say find a community, because not everybody can travel whenever they want. It took me a very long time to save up for the trip that I am currently on. And this trip is very motivating to study, but you know, I can't just fly anywhere I want whenever I'm not motivated to learn the language. So if you can find like a local community or some sort of study buddy, that's always helpful. And that kind of builds me onto tip number 2 of celebrating the culture or traditions or holidays or whatever. When you study a language, it is my opinion that you should do some research on the culture as well, because that can help you with studying and with practicing, and there's a whole bunch of good reasons of why to study the culture as well as the language. And if you find little ways to integrate that culture into your life in a celebratory way, not an appropriation way, but like looking when some countries have holidays and what they do for those holidays, you can mark your calendar and then you can think, oh, I want to be able to say like the phrases for that holiday, or be able to talk about it, or anything that might interest you. Or even finding a traditional recipe if you like to cook, or if you like to go to a restaurant. That can be very inspiring to continue to studying a language. Tip number 3 is to measure your progress. Now, everybody studies differently, and that is perfectly fine, but if you can set some sort of goal that can help you measure your progress, for example, if you have a textbook, it can be reaching a certain chapter in the textbook, or it can be completing the textbook, then maybe you can reward yourself with something you enjoy, and then that will help you stay motivated to, if not do a long lesson, a mini lesson every day, other day, week, whatever floats your boat, whatever works for you, but having some sort of way to keep you working towards the next little bit. And this could also be wanting to be able to, like if you're beginning, to introduce yourself, or if you're intermediate, talk about some of your hobbies in depth or things that interest you. And if you're advanced, being able to go through your entire day thinking in the language, or like if you're talking with someone, going back and thinking, could I have had that same conversation in my target language? Setting a goal maybe like that. It could also be anything along the lines of being able to read an article completely in the target language and then summarize it, or listen to a song and understand most of the lyrics. Like whatever interests you, find a way to set a goal so that you can measure your progress. Because a lot of times, if you feel like you're not making any progress, if you're not getting anywhere, if you're not getting better, it's really hard to stay motivated. And I know with every language, when you hit, there's a certain spot, like kind of in the intermediate B1, B2 level, where you just feel like you aren't learning anything new. Everything's either going over your head, or you feel like you can't say anything. You're like, I've been studying this language for a long time, and now all of a sudden it's just gone. We all hit that road bump, trust me, we do. And that can be a really hard one to get through, but I promise you, if you keep working at it, do a little lesson every day or a bigger lesson, you know, whatever your study schedule is, because having a study schedule is a great way to keep track and stay motivated. That can help you get over your hump and then continue on learning. And then when you feel like you are actually learning, that can be more motivating as well. But just in case you haven't heard this, if you're suffering through that bump, you're not alone. Tip number 4 kind of melds along into it, but if you're someone who likes music or podcasts or likes to listen to something, add it in your target language. I have lots of different playlists, each one with music in the culture and in the language that I am studying. I also have a master playlist of, it's literally called Anything But English, and it has a whole bunch of songs, none of them obviously in English, but it is a mix of anything and everything I find, really. And so I find that playlist is really nice to get me motivated, because if I'm like, okay, I should really do a French lesson, but I don't want to listen to my French playlist. Maybe I've listened to it a lot and I haven't added any new music, or I don't feel like looking for new music, then I can put on my Anything But English playlist, and then I'll hear a French song, and then that'll be like, oh yeah, no, actually I do enjoy French and I should continue learning. And then I can either switch over to my French playlist or start a lesson. And this can also go with podcasts. If you can find either, it could be a language learning podcast or any other simple podcast. There are so many podcasts, or even like TED Talks. I was watching this really interesting TED Talks about spelling, but it was in Spanish. And that, after I watched that, I was like, oh my word, I want to do a Spanish lesson right now. And that wasn't even my plan. Like, I was just kind of relaxing, having a night, and then all of a sudden it turned into a Spanish lesson because I was motivated. I was inspired. I wanted to continue with Spanish. So if you have some playlist, video, podcast, whatever, that you can substitute into your free time or into your routine, that can also inspire you. Tip number 5 is again along these lines. They all kind of flow together. And that is to change something in your daily routine. More specifically, along these lines, I'm thinking change the language of your phone. It may seem really scary at first, but you have a lot of muscle memory with when you open certain apps, questions it'll ask you, or, you know, there are a lot of images to go along with the words. So even if you're really nervous, just try putting your phone in your target language, and then that way you're always seeing it, probably every day, considering how often we look at our phones. and then you get a little bit of familiarization with it. And then you can also follow, like if you're someone who enjoys social media, follow people whose native language is your target language. Watch other YouTubers, watch or follow TikTokers, Instagrammers, but you know, any kind of influencer from a different country, you can substitute whatever YouTube videos, although not mine, you should keep watching mine. Substitute other YouTube videos or your time on YouTube watching these native speakers. Then you're getting a mini lesson, but you're also relaxing. This also goes with TV shows, reading, whatever you like to do in your downtime. If you can substitute it into your target language but still do the same thing, it's like you're kind of motivating yourself, but you're also doing a lesson at the same time. Sorry if you can hear the neighbors in our bed and breakfast. They are a fun group. Number 6 might be a little more niche. It might not work for everybody, but that is to follow the news in your target language or of the country or countries where that language is spoken. So I'm not really one who likes to watch the news or read news articles. A lot of the ways I actually get my news updates are from my partner because they are very invested in the news, and I appreciate that. But even if this is maybe not something you usually do, it might be a good thing to start doing because, again, it ties into knowing what's going on. Maybe it can be, again, about those positive traditions or holidays, but knowing what's going on there and then thinking about how you want to communicate might be a way. It might be worth a shot doing. And then the 7th and final tip that I have for you today is hopefully the easiest, but maybe not, and that is to do a purely fun project. What I mean is to take something you enjoy, maybe a hobby. For example, I like to read. A really fun project for me would be to read a book in my target language, or read a book that was translated and then read the translation as well. Or if I also like to write, I would love to try writing a story in my target language. Or you could, if you're really into music, find the lyrics to a song you really like and then translate them. This goes either way, either a song from your native language into your target language, although that can be very tricky. So I would probably recommend finding a song in your target language and then translating it into your native language. And then if you're so musically talented, maybe try fitting it to the music so it can actually be performed. You know, there are so many things for so many different interests, but find something fun to do because language learning should be fun. That's the only way we're gonna stay motivated to do it, you know? And this may take a little bit of time for you to come up with a very fun project, but just keep your mind open, kind of go out through your life and try and find moments that you are enjoying and then seeing if there is a way for you to turn it into a fun project. And then again, this ties back into measuring your progress. Completing a fun project can be a great way to measure your progress in the language. But yes, I can completely understand how it can be very difficult to stay motivated, especially if you've been learning it for a long time, because I have always had a very easy time starting off at a new language, but as soon as I've been with it for a while, I can teeter out. But if you find new ways to incorporate it or inspire yourself in your daily routine, then hopefully it will be easier to stay motivated. Thank you all very much for watching. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Leave comments down below if you have any other tips or tricks on how to stay motivated or any struggles that you have had, because if we share our struggles together, then we know we're not alone, and that is just so comforting. Comment those down below. If you like videos that have to do with language learning or traveling, hit the subscribe button and hit the bell to be notified as I post videos on Mondays. I will see you all in the next video. Tutsings!